In today's video, I am going to be restringing my sister's Magic Attic Club Allison doll. This was my very first attempt at restringing a Magic Attic Club doll, and typically I would wait to film a tutorial until I had more experience, but I really don't know when I'm going to get the chance to restring one of these dolls again. So I figured I would film my first attempt, show you what I did. I filmed this intro originally before I restrung Allison, so I will show a clip here of how loose she was from that intro. Today I'm going to be showing you how I restring my sister's Magic Attic Allison doll. You can see she's very loose. Anyways, I decided to come back and refilm this intro now that I'm done because, I wanted to provide some context here. I do restring American Girls pretty regularly. I have a lot of experience doing that. I've been restringing American Girls for probably around 13 years now, and they are, in my opinion, a lot easier because they don't have necks that need to be strung, they have larger limbs, and they have better quality cups inside. So my biggest struggle with Allison wasn't actually the stringing process and getting the tension right on the cord. For me, it was getting the little cups inside her limbs out because she uses a cup system like an American Girl doll does. It was really difficult to see them. There was a lot of cord knotted up in them, so it was very difficult. And I felt very frustrated and kind of defeated at first, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it because it just seemed like it was going to be so difficult. But once I got those cups out, it was pretty smooth sailing, even with her slight differences from how she's strung compared to American Girls. So if you have some limited experience restringing dolls, I wouldn't say Magic Attic Club are crazy difficult because I'm not super experienced in this arena. And it was just more time consuming, and I got a little angry and I wasn't that patient. So hopefully what I show in this video makes sense to you, but I will link below the tutorial that I referenced. So I found this tutorial actually before I knew I was going to need to restring a Magic Attic Club doll because my sister's two other dolls, Rose and Megan, were fine when she got them. And then after I found that tutorial, it's like I jinxed myself because she found an Allison doll in a lot on eBay for her birthday, and she was insanely loose, as you could see from that previous clip, lolling about, and just from being cleaned, she got so much worse. And that's another thing. I already cleaned her wig and washed her body prior to filming this tutorial. So I'll link the reference tutorial that I used. I changed a few things based on supplies that I had and what I was familiar with doing from restringing American Girls. This tutorial does not replicate the way that they're strung in the factory. It was really interesting when I took Allison apart to see how complicated they made it when it didn't really need to be. So the person whose tutorial I referenced did it a lot more streamlined. Now there are different manufacturers for Magic Attic Club dolls. My sister's Allison doll is one of the older Knickerbocker ones. So what she looks like on the inside is going to be different than what some of the other ones made by Marion LLC or Charisma Brands, what they're going to look like. They're similar enough where you can modify it and just supplement parts. In the person's tutorial that I referenced, they also sell restringing kits online. So if you just want to buy one of those inexpensive restringing kits and use that and follow their tutorial, then that's also an option. I bought my own supplies so I could restring multiple dolls because I have a Hopscotch Hill doll that I'm hoping I can use some of these materials for as well. So just keep that in mind. This was my first time. Even though I film a lot of tutorials and dolly transformation type videos, I'm still always learning. It's always intimidating when you're learning something new. But I think that's the fun part about dolls, is you never know it all and you always can learn something new. This was a learning experience for me too. And so I hope you enjoy the video, and let's get to the tutorial. To restring a Magic Attic doll, you're going to need cord elastic cord. This is 4mm in size. That's what the repair kits you can buy come with in terms of size for cord. I have some marine grade bungee cord that I bought off of Amazon. I bought a lot of extra in case I have to restring more dolls in the future or if I messed up. The marine grade is supposed to be a lot more durable. Obviously it's meant to be outside, so that's something to keep in mind when restringing a doll. Is you want to use like cord that's going to last a long time. You can also just buy a restringing kit off of eBay. People sell them for like really cheap. And then you'll need an assortment of pliers, needle nose pliers. They have to be pretty tiny in order to get inside the limbs. These are going to be for pulling out the cups and any other parts. Scissors. And then I'm going to be using washers. Therefore, I'm going to need these crimpers. So if you watch my American Girl restring tutorial, then you know I don't use the like metal clamps that come with the American Girls. I just buy washers. These are a tiny size. These are the number 10 size. Basically really tiny washers is what you want. They're easy to bend and crimp down into like a little metal clamp. But the tutorials I have seen and like the restringing kits I've seen, they actually use wing nuts instead. So really anything you can think of to be a stopper for the cup or in place of the cup, you can use. This is just what I'm using because this is like a technique I'm familiar with. And you'll also need a bowl and some boiling water. There are some similarities between these dolls and American Girls. So like I'm going to be heating up the limbs in boiling water in order to remove the cups inside or like whatever is inside to get the stuff out. Now they say in the tutorial not to cut the string holding the neck in because I guess it like there's something inside the head that's attached to that string, so it's handier to keep it in. So we're going to start with the arms. So yeah, you can see that these dolls have like some interesting, what it looks like to me is that these dolls had loops made, these cable ties held them in place onto like the long cord in here where the neck goes. And the same dealie is going on with the legs where they have loops. So I'm waiting for my water to heat up. This is what I have. Her torso, 2 arms, 2 legs, and her head. And actually, I looked up on the tutorial, so I can make a loop with these 2 pieces of cord here, so I don't need to take out what's in her head, because I can make like a little loop using these that the cord that runs through her body will connect to. So that's good. So I don't need to like heat up her head, which can be annoying with the wig. So I have boiled water in my kettle, and then I'm going to do what I do with American Girls. Just going to plop the limbs in here until they're nice and soft. And I have an assortment of little pliers because I'm not really sure like which ones are going to fit in her limbs super easily. These ones I use on American Girl typically. They're nice and bent and you can get in there. But I have these super tiny ones I bought to do my hopscotch hill doll, so they might come in handy. Alright, here we go. There's one piece. Alright, so this was my first attempt at getting one of the little cups out. You can see what made it so hard is like the thickness of the cord and then how tiny the cup is, but we have one successfully removed. It was easier because this was a little bit softer, so that's why it's so important. And I should also note that she smells really musty. That took a lot of effort. This is my first time doing it, so I'm not really sure like what what to expect here, so this is making it take longer. But I will say that like my first attempt at doing American Girls, I feel like it was a lot easier. Alright, so after reheating the water and struggling for another few minutes, I got the rest of the cups out. So there are 4 cups that go into each of the limbs. Yeah, you can see now I'm gonna have to also like wipe her body down again after, because I don't know if it was from the pliers or like something inside the limbs, but there's like little smudges all over her body now. This was like really difficult because it's hard to see the cups inside the limbs, and they have extremely small holes but very deep lips, so like on the inside of the limbs, so it's really difficult to see where you're grabbing, and by the time you think you have it, the limb is starting to cool down, so it's not as squishy. I'm glad I had these tiny pliers because they were easier to get in there, although they're pretty sharp, so they kind of tore up a little bit at the inside of the legs, but it can be done. I'm going to reuse these cups. In the tutorial they use wing nuts, but I don't see a point in that when these will work just fine. So this is what we're looking at right now. I definitely found this a lot harder than taking cups out of an American Girl, just because the size of the limbs and the holes are so much more narrow. It's just not as easy. It's so easy getting these into an American Girl socket and pulling out the cups on them, and their cups are so much larger, and their cups are also quite a bit thicker. So I have her apart. I have left her to dry for a few hours because I like had lunch and went to work and all that, so she should be pretty dry on the inside. They say to make sure that the doll is dry before you reassemble, but I don't really know how that's going to be possible because in order to put the cups back in, I'm going to have to wet them. Now with American Girls, I haven't really had the problem like of needing to dry out the inside of the limbs perfectly, so hopefully there won't be an issue. I mean, if there is, I can take her apart and clean her. But the website, just so you know, advises that you completely dry out everything. The way that the website I'm using recommends restringing them is different than how they were strung in the factory, but I'm just going to go with like pretty much their method but modify it a bit for myself and my supplies. So it's kind of like American Girl where we have to prep the limbs. So I'm going to use the cups that came with the doll. I'm going to put them back in the body. They use wing nuts on the tutorial I'm referencing, so like they're like nuts, but they have the wings, and you knot it, the wing goes on, you push the wing in, and that is supposed to hold it in place. But I'm going to use these cups because I don't have wing nuts, and what I'm going to do to hold the cups in place is I'm going to use the same method that I used for restringing American Girls. I have my little washer here, and like basically I bend it a bit, it'll slide over the cord, and then I'll clamp it down, and that's going to butt up against this so that the cord's not going to fall through there. I'm not even going to have to knot it because I don't really care for knotting cord. I had to figure out how long the cord needs to be because they're not all going to be the same size pieces. So 3 of them are going to have a short cord. But the way that this comes together is there's going to be a piece of cord that runs from the leg up the torso. It's going to catch the knot I'm going to make here, and then it's going to come back down this leg, and it's going to tie to the other leg. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to cut this kind of long to make sure I have enough to do that. Some extra to be able to tie. Just need to like basically poke out long enough to tie to that other thing. So this should work here. It's gonna knot, come there, tie together there. And then that should work for the arms. One is gonna come across and tie to the other. So I have basically my really long piece of cord and then my 3 shorter pieces of cord. And the way I want to line up the cups, it's just like it is with American Girl, where you want the rounded part to go like into the limb. So I'm going to put my washer so that the flat part is on top of the cup. And I don't personally want a whole lot of extra cord because they don't have much space in their limbs, so I am going to leave a little gap, but I don't want to leave too much. And I'm just going to like use my crimping tool, kind of fold it over. You can also use like those same metal ferrules, brass inserts, metal crimps, whatever they're called that they use on American Girl. You can use those too here because some Magic Addict dolls have them instead of knots. So this is basically going to go into the leg. I'm going to have to like heat everything up, but I'm going to prep it all first. And so I'm going to start these washers by giving them a slight bend using my 2 pliers here, and then I'm just going to put them on the cord. Again, I don't want to leave too much of a gap because I don't need to knot because these are acting in place of a knot. And again, we're going to have like the flat side on the top of the cup. The round part is going to go in. There are like so many ways you can modify this, just like American Girl. And really, like, if you can find something laying around that works, then just use it. So there we have it. We have my 3 shorter cords and my longer cord. This is just an extra step that I'm going to do. I do this with my American Girls sometimes. So I just like to melt the edge of the cord here just to prevent it from unraveling, but you can use glue, you know, something else you can think of. I'm not too worried about these ends because I'm going to have to trim them down further. So I'm only going to melt for now the top part that's going to go inside the limbs. I'm going to get some more water boiling in my kettle. I really want to avoid getting water inside these limbs if I can. So I'm like trying to not tip them too much to the side to let water in. Trixie. Pushed in right. Okay, there we go. Yeah, just want to make sure they're pushed in all the way. Because they have, like I said before, these dolls have really deep lips inside. So you kind of have to like... Alright, so now I have the 2 legs, one with a very long string. The 2 arms, I had a lot of trouble getting the cup inside one of these. I think it's because it got distorted when I pulled it out, and I had to reheat the water just to do it. I ended up having to kind of reshape it with my pliers, and then when this was squishy from the hot water, I had to use my pliers to shove it back in. And I did, for that reason, blow dry this arm because some water did get in here. Whereas if you hold them perpendicular to the water, if you don't turn it to the side at all, the water shouldn't go inside the limb. And if it does, and you're concerned about it blow dry, I was only a little concerned because this is like such a tight fit. So we have the limbs, the torso, and the head. So I have to make a loop here so that there's like a little slot for the elastic to go through. So basically, this is gonna go up and up the neck. And then this is going to go through. And it's going to get fed back through the body. And then all this extra stuff needs to get tucked. And then we're going to tie these together. So I guess like we want some tension on the cord. Because if there's too much slack, see, it's going to be loose. So we do want there to be tension. I'm not sure, like, that's going to be enough tension. See if that's going to be enough tension. No. Oh, that feels pretty tight. Make sure that's tied really tight. And then we're going to cut this cord down. We are going to leave little tails. And I think I'm going to melt those tails. Alright, and then you have to tuck that in. Alright. Yeah, she feels reasonably tight. It's my first time doing this, so there's a learning curve here. And then for the arms, we're going to feed this one through. And then it's going to be the same thing where like you tie it. So I want like a pretty decent amount of tension. Let me see. Okay. Gonna trim it. And then we're just gonna tuck those in there. And now she's much tighter than she was before. I'm going to wipe her down really quick because there's some like smudgy marks. This is my first one, so she's not going to be like, you know, perfect, but I think that's a pretty decent job. And this is Allison, all done. I've gotten her dressed back up. You can see she can freestand. She can hold poses now. So it's a vast improvement. This is my very first time restringing one of these dolls, so there's definitely a learning curve, as with anything. And I could have probably made her a little bit tighter, but she's fine for like my sister using her for photos and displaying her. And if I want to go back in her in the future and tighten things up, I absolutely can. I hope you found this tutorial somewhat helpful. Like I said, I'll link the tutorial I found that I use as a reference point, so if you want to check that out, you can. There's a bunch of different ways to restring these dolls. This method, it doesn't mimic what the factory did, so just keep that in mind. And just always use what supplies are obtainable for you and what methods like you find work best. This is just what I did, and until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.